Put on a suit. Drink water. Don't drink and drive.
Game over!
Take it light. Okay?
Now you're more fluent.
Makina, he's got three!
Bears.
So this is really good right here. Absolutely. Let's do it.
Good evening, Toronto Maple Leaf fans and hockey fans. How we doing tonight? Happy to be back here with another episode of Leafs Unfiltered, here as always with my co-host Caroline. How we doing tonight?
Good, thanks. Excited, action-packed episode tonight.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. Usually we have to kind of have our pre-game discussion on, okay, what type of topic can we bring into the live tonight that we can maybe talk through and maybe extend it and actually make it feel like we've got real content to discuss? But we don't need to do that tonight.
No,
we don't.
We got it.
Yeah. The news is creating itself. It's creating our show here. A lot going on. And fortunately for us, for our show, Leafs Unfiltered, it's Leaf related. We're not talking about a Leon Draisaitl signing. We're not talking about what other teams are doing. We might do a little bit of that. But most of the focus, as it usually will be here, will be on Leaf news and what the team is doing. And they were doing some things today.
You betcha. All week they've been brewing.
Yeah. Bradtree living, cooking.
Going through his phone. He's just making the calls, making the rounds.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? If the Leafs can play 15 forwards on opening night, we're going to look really good.
We will look so good. We'll be a little bottom heavy on that 15, but that's to be expected when you have 15 players.
Yeah, but all those details, that feels like semantics. They'll figure that out in the next 2 weeks is at least what we're going to be talking through today, and how are they actually going to figure that out. So just to tee up some of the conversations that you guys will be hearing, and even before we do that, as I usually always kind of forget initially, if you are tuning in, definitely drop us a comment. If there's anything you want to ask a question on, or you've got a thought on anything Leaf hockey related, please don't be shy. Drop us a comment. And we also encourage any of our viewers, if they want to come on the live here on the hot seat, you can ask us a question. Criticize any of our takes. We'd love to have you on, and that's kind of what the show is all about. So we want to make sure we engage our audience, and if you want to come on, don't hesitate. Drop us a comment, and we can bring you in.
Yeah. So
as I was saying earlier, teeing up the topics for today. So the news kind of hit early and often. Today we had the, first up was the announcement of a re-signing of Nick Robertson. And shortly after that, we had the confirmation of not one, but two more additions. Max Pacioretty on a PTO, which had been kind of talked about and rumored for a couple days, but was made official today. Yeah. And then our buddy, Yanni Hakanpää. Yeah, he is going to be a Leaf, Caroline. He will be a Leaf.
Amazing.
Just as they reported on July 1st. And now even the Toronto Maple Leafs say it's happening. So that's a good sign. Unreal.
Only 1 year, though, this time. He got 2 years initially, 2 years for $1.5 million, I think. And it's been downgraded to a 1-year contract. So something's gone on. There's been some meddling in that contract, but
perhaps the 2 years was based on the presumption he had 2 healthy knees. Maybe now they know it's only one, so you only get the 1-year deal. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah,
that's good. You should tweet that.
I should.
Yeah.
So where would you like to begin? I think that's probably our main topics. We'll also talk a little bit about this weekend's prospect showcase coming up in Montreal, where all the top prospects for both the Canadiens and the Maple Leafs will do battle at the Bell Center in Montreal for games Saturday and Sunday. So I can show you kind of the lineup for that, and we can talk through who we're most excited to watch. But I think we should start with, obviously, the big club's moves today. So where would you like to kick it off?
Well, I think we should sort of run down, like you introduced, the big moves that have happened today. I guess it all happened today.
Yeah.
And then also getting into, like, if we can pull a narrative out of what's happened in Leafs Nation in the last 2 weeks, sort of who is vying for the left wing spots that we have, because there's a lot of one of these for left wingers, I think. Like, it's just kind of up in the air. Nothing's locked in. There's a lot of different ways that the team could go with these guys they brought in on PTO and the guys that they have coming up.
For
so
sure.
I'd love to look at or hear what your takes are on who's going to get those bottom two winger spots.
For sure. And like on that note, I have kind of like a sort of pecking order depth chart based on the signings today that we can kind of look through, and we can see how kind of full it is looking right now, for lack of a more appropriate term. It's just there's obviously a lot of NHL caliber players signed to NHL contracts, and that doesn't even include obviously the up and coming prospects that we'll see this weekend who may have a chance to crack the lineup. So there's as we joked about earlier, there's only going to be 12 forwards playing opening night, but right now you could probably make a case for at least 15.
I wonder if any of these guys, any of the four that we're leaving out, can play D.
Yeah. I mean, that's at least in the past been something we need, but now that we have Hawk and Paw, that's not a worry.
That's true, actually.
Right?
Yeah.
Or we think we do. We'll find out soon.
We will. We're coming into some exciting times, so we'll hear more. 10 sleeps, Josh, until preseason. 10 sleeps.
Is that all? Wow.
Well, I'm not sure if the Leafs play on opening night of the preseason, but the opening night of the preseason is September 21st, and we're at the 11th.
I think the Leafs game is the 22nd, so we have 11.
Sleeps,
we got
11 sleeps. Okay.
You were trying to shortchange us here. It sounded like it was too hard to believe.
Yeah. I know. I'm
like
just
only 10
to get there.
For sure. So I think maybe start with Nick Robertson, because I think that comes with, a little bit. It's not, to me, a very straightforward transaction. I don't know what your thoughts are. I'll let you kind of go first in terms of your initial impression of the move. But I think there might be something else going on here other than, I decided I wanted to re-sign today. But where are you at from, I don't know, a first kind of impression when you heard that he was re-signing?
Shocked was my first impression. Second impression is I kind of feel like he's going to be coming into camp, dealing with Leafs media, dealing with the fans with sort of a tail between the legs situation. He, this summer, had asked for a trade that was blasted across Toronto media. It's pretty much the only thing we had to talk about for the first half of the summer. So everybody heard that he wanted out. And I'm curious to see what the reception will be for Nick when he arrives at training camp, when he's playing in preseason. But also obviously he'd made those statements. He wanted out. He didn't get any offers, any bites from another team. So
doubtful.
What's that?
It would seem like he didn't get much. At least the Maple Leafs didn't receive much interest, or at least it wasn't good enough for what they needed back to move him. Yeah.
Or, Brad had a higher value on what he wanted in return. But I think it's really, it adds an extra layer of excitement to the preseason and to, into training camp. And I wonder what your take is on this, is that maybe the Leafs have had some extra looks at Cowan, who's also a left winger, in the last couple of weeks, and they've thought, not quite there yet. And that's why they've got Nick Robertson sort of as some added insurance for that slot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it would be connected to any concern over Cowan. I think kind of the reports that I've been hearing, and there was an interview with the London Knights trainer who has also kind of been doing a lot of like individual training sessions with Cowan this summer. And he just was speaking glowingly about kind of his preparation, his training, and the fact that he skipped out, Cowan did, on London Knights training camp to kind of get himself more prepared for training camp.
Yeah.
I would still have the same, I guess, prediction related to Cowan in terms of the likelihood of him cracking the lineup opening night, whereas I would almost still put him at almost like a 95%, close to 100% chance that he makes the team. And it might just be that 9-game trial, because obviously he can't just show up and be underwhelming and play 82 games in the NHL. That doesn't happen for anybody. But 9 games, I think, is happening. Yeah,
I think he'll get the 9-gamer. We'll see if he sticks. But with him in the lineup, who does that bounce? So you got Nyes, you got McMahon, you got Cowan, and then you got Pacioretty.
Yeah, you'd have Pacioretty there. You got Dewar there, and there's obviously guys, you could say you could play right wing, could play left wing. They could kind of rotate, but where we were like a week ago or even 48 hours ago, let's say, where we were like, who's playing? Is there any Leaf fan who wants to play left wing? Like, we were almost at that point. It was like you had Matthew Nyes and Bobby McMahon, and then God knows who else. But then you go to like Dewar. Yeah, obviously, if you were as bullish on Cowan.
Yeah. I left out Robertson from that lineup. So one of those 4 isn't going to be a lock.
No, 100%. And I think just before I kind of show the lineup, like the thing with Nick Robertson, and I agree, like I was kind of shocked too to hear the news just based on everything that was reported. And then I think like 48 hours ago, Darren Dreger was like, I expect a deal with Nick Robertson shortly. Like, what? He doesn't want out anymore? Right.
Yeah.
And then when he signs like 1 year at $875K, my first reaction was this might be the worst ever holdout by a player. Like this guy held out till whatever you said, 10, 11 more sleeps until preseason. And even less for training camp opening. But like he held out, and then his agent said, no, just take the 1 year $875K from the team that you don't want to be with. Like, so that's why, and follow me here and let me know if you think there's anything to it. And I have seen, I think Frank Saravelli tweeted out something very, very much in the same kind of with the same idea.
Yeah.
Nick Robertson has re-signed because there probably is a deal that they are close on, but for the Leafs to actually execute and complete it, they needed, or at least to help them get that deal done, to have him signed to a contract so the acquiring team gets that cost certainty to know what they're acquiring to fit in their cap. But I almost believe that unless it was just like as I said, the history's worst all-time holdout, and Robertson just woke up one day and said, okay, 875K is good. And I want to play for the Maple Leafs again. I think there might still be a trade happening with with the player. Yeah.
Now, do your sources, do they have any trade destinations?
No. Okay. And my sources are the same as everyone else's.
Yeah.
It's the Darren Dregers, the Frank Saravelli, and this one in particular, just Saravelli. I think he even said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said it's definitely more likely that Nick Robertson is traded than he plays with the Maple Leafs opening night, which I thought was very bold for him to go out there. He's been known to have some bold takes, and kind of like Darren Dreger and Elliot Friedman, all of them on any of their hot takes or predictions, they're probably around a 1 or 2% hit rate. It just kind of, I think, the nature of that business, you hear something and you feel you have to report on it. You got to tweet it because that's your job.
See something, you say something, right?
Totally.
Parent association, block parent thing.
Exactly.
I've seen a lot of rumblings of that too, that they think he might complete a trade, but you're right. There's no real discussion around what that trade might actualize into. What I'm setting 50%. 50% over under. You think it has to do with Mitch Marner? What are you gonna say? Over under?
That his re-signing has to do with Mitch Marner?
If there is a trade package that's brewing that he could be a tack on to a Mitch Marner.
Included in that? I'd say under. Unfortunately, at this point, and it pains me to do it, but I've obviously lost a little bit of confidence in a Marner trade happening before opening night.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's more because Marner is being, obviously difficult, but exercising his right that he has within his contract to not waive his no movement. I feel that's probably where things are at, but I think it will be something that we do revisit a month from now when Mitch Marner has had the camera and microphone shoved in his face and being asked the exact same question over and over again. He might, and if he doesn't, if he's not at well over a point a game the first 10 games, then everyone's be like, oh, what's going on here? Like, he's probably not enjoying his time here. Do you want out, Mitch? No, I love it here. Okay, but I'll ask you again. Do you want out?
Okay, but really, Mitch? Like, what do you really mean?
Yeah. You say no, but you really mean, yes, please trade me. Yeah. And that's probably how the media will do it.
Over a point a game, like, those are the numbers I know that he kept last year, but that's, like, still pretty big stuff.
Yep. For sure. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that maybe there is something like the Robertson could be kind of the added piece to a Marner trade, but I don't know. At this point, I think it's probably independent of that. But I think just with Nick Robertson, it just feels like the timing of it, something else is going on, and we can talk about the Max Pacioretty signing and then maybe show the entire forward depth and probably bring up again the likelihood of Robertson showing up. Yeah. So with that, I mean, obviously, Max Pacioretty, former captain of the Montreal Canadiens. So, you kind of love the idea or just a possibility of seeing him excel as a Maple Leaf, specifically in the games that we play against the Montreal Canadiens. That would kind of be a dream for Leaf fans, but it feels like that's only a one-way road. It's only the guys that we trade.
Same thing.
Yeah.
The reverse that happens
teams that acquire teams that acquire our guys, then they come in here and they definitely light the lamp. They get a hat trick. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Always. For sure. Or if it's a goaltender, if he's ever played for the Maple Leafs, if we play against him down the road, he's going to have a 45 save shutout.
Totally. Yep. Easy. Yeah.
So hopefully we can reverse that trend, and you can't deny the obvious connection that we could see Max Pacioretty wearing number 67, right? That's his number. Is he the one who reverses the curse?
Are you hockey Illuminati all of a sudden?
I know. As I was saying that, I'm like, if it's not already a hockey Illuminati video, it probably will be by the end of tonight. Yeah, for sure. That's right up his alley.
Yeah. No, it's funny.
Yeah. So, I mean, Max Pacioretty, I think obviously the initial reaction that I've at least seen on X is everyone's like, okay, great. He's 35 years old. How can he help? He's always been hurt. He hasn't produced in 3-4 years. Why are we doing this, Brad? Not the right guy. Let the young guys play. Why are you bringing in a veteran? That's kind of been the majority of the views.
I know. Please continue. I have a take on that after you introduce.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to say, like, I'm not completely against that as being like a, at least a rejection or a, dissatisfaction of the move. But to me, I think it's, it's a PTO especially. So it's very low risk at this point. You're bringing in a guy who's got a pedigree. He's performed. Yeah, sure. It's 3 years ago now, but it's not like, and we talked about it earlier, it's not like you have a left wing group that is formidable. That is like not a lot. So, I mean, for me, I think you're giving a guy a chance to show he still has enough to contribute, that he can still be a productive player with the right opportunity. So I like the move. I wouldn't say it's something that I'm overly excited about or predicting him to, come in and have a rebirth and be a 30 goal, 40 goal guy. Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
But this team, for a while now, for a few years now, has always complained about, or fans have, the secondary scoring. Beyond your core guys, your top two lines, no one's putting the puck in the net. So why would you be opposed to bringing in a guy who, as recent as 3 years ago, has been a guy who was on a 30-goal pace?
Yeah.
So I don't hate the move.
Yeah. I just want to pick up on what you were saying about sort of, we have become a bit of an older team. Even our star guys, Matthews, Marner, Nylander, they're getting into their late 20s. Like, we don't have a huge crop of young 20, mid 20-year-old players. We're sort of becoming like a bit of a retirement folks.
Well, we're not as old as the Edmonton Oilers, the oldest team in the NHL.
That's true, but we also have
everyone just showers with praise. Edmonton's doing everything so good, but the Maple Leafs are too old.
Yeah, that's fair. What I don't love that we're seeing right now is the competition for roster spots is basically going to somebody that's aging out of their career, or they're injured, or they're trying to make the team. These are two very different beasts that we're kind of looking at to fight for a place. And it's going to be really interesting to watch preseason, no doubt. But you got to be wanting for more guys that aren't really in those two opposite spectrums. But as for Pacioretty, I think that there's a lot of moving pieces when it comes to him. We have, where is he going to land? Is he going to be on the third line? Is he going to be on the fourth line? So that was my point, is that we're getting a little old. We don't have that coming up crop of young 20, mid 20-year-olds. We do have those Easton Cowens, Fraser Minton, call it Cade Weber. Nyes. That's fair. Nyes we have.
And I think that's where these moves are very reactionary. And I think it's obviously a product of not having, a lot of internal options to promote. Yeah. And I think Tree Living recognizes that, we're in a win now window. So I can't exactly just, continue or run it back. Right. I can't run it back with the same group who hasn't gotten the results and clearly isn't looking like they're about to get the results. So external kind of ads has to be the way to go. And you're not going to be bringing in a young, up and coming, promising 22-year-old unless you're going to pay a big price for that player. So, I get it. It feels like you're just plugging
and playing
a round peg in a square hole type thing, but I think that's kind of where they're at, where they recognize we're in a win now window. So we have to try to maximize the peak years of the Nylander, Matthews, Marner, Rileys. But we also have to find those ability to improve on what we've done, which obviously hasn't been anywhere nearly good enough. So
I think exactly. And I think what we're seeing now is the fallout of trading all of those draft picks that we had when Dubas was in town. We're having to do that square peg in a round hole plug and play situation, which, being reactionary, is not effective in a business sense, in a hockey sense. Even in the day-to-day, you want to be prepared. You want to know what's ahead. And as long as the chips can work out, that's good. We're really trying here. We're obviously bringing in everyone. But I still do wish that, that we didn't need to be picking up all these older guys, picking up guys that are potentially injured, that have one knee.
That's completely fair. And that's where I think the reaction, it's valid. It's okay, Max Pacioretty, that doesn't excite me. Yanni Hakanpää.
So I haven't been excited about anything the Leafs have done this summer except for Chris Tanev.
Anthony Stolarz and Oliver Ekman-Larsson didn't do it for you, huh?
Definitely not OEL. Stolars. No. I really didn't like the Stolars move because
what?
I've wanted for a number
Do
one
tell.
goalie. I've wanted for a number one goalie in Leafs Nation since like the Ed Balfour days.
Can I show you some video highlights of the brick wall? Can I show you? Are you interested in seeing some highlights of Joseph Woll?
No, I've seen him get injured enough times to know what's coming.
Go. Yeah.
I am just a realistic Leafs fan, Josh. Here, somebody needs to be.
Someone between the two of us has to be, and I'm not about to be that one. No.
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we take a look, because we've obviously been talking without kind of looking at all these names here. So I've got the forward group here.
Any chance you can zoom that? Actually, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's fine. It's just small for me on my little eye.
I can do that, and then
that's perfect.
Is that better? Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lovely. Good work.
So this is actually, obviously, you're seeing how many we got here? 21 forwards that I feel are probably, in terms of the pecking order, these are sort of in order from not necessarily a potential line combinations and who's going to be playing with who, but just pecking order depth chart. So I put in Max Pacioretty, ignore the 1.1 mil. I kind of just predicted what a contract could look like if they do sign him. Got Steven Lorenz down there behind Cowan, Alex Nylander, who we still don't even know if he'll get a PTO. But yeah, there's a logjam, an absolute logjam of quality forwards.
You put Cowan in at center, eh? Thought he was a winger. Thought he was left.
Yeah, he's played both, and probably if he does make the team out of camp, he will be on the wing. I just kind of put him in here because in terms of now the left wing, which after today has become a great position for us all of a sudden.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of Nick Robertson and Max Pacioretty. But yeah, I didn't want to put him like behind Dewar over here, but I feel like these are probably your top 15 guys competing for a job. So I just didn't want to put him any further down than I needed to. So
okay. For
mostly
audio
position in the line combinations here.
Okay, I think this is an interesting thing. Maybe we can talk about, like, can you run down for our audio listeners who's on left wing right now? And
absolutely. That's a good call. So from top to bottom, left wing depth, we would have Matthew Nyes, Bobby McMahon, Max Pacioretty, Nicholas Robertson, Connor Dewar, Alex Steeves, and Alex Nylander. Alex Nylander obviously still not signed to an NHL PTO, so probably not even fair to include him in there, but I think enough people
I think it's fair.
Predicting he will get a PTO.
Yeah, you needed a 3x6 anyway. 3x7, excuse me. So I would say with that lineup, the only two I would reverse, I don't know. Are you kind of, obviously they've paid, the salary that you have Max Pacioretty getting would be 1.1 million. Is that just what's predicted on cap wages?
No, I just totally throwing a dart there. Throwing a dart. And actually, when I did the lineup here on Puckpedia, like in order to add the guy into your lineup, you have to sign him to a contract. So you got to actually be a full armchair GM. You can't just add a guy. You got to sign him to contract. Yeah.
I just see him more on the fourth line, Pacioretty for us, and I see Robertson more on our third line. I think
you can easily flip.
That's my only feedback on this left wing. Call it a depth chart.
I mean, I really don't think. Sorry to cut you off. I really don't think either guy has a chance to be the fourth line left winger. Like on a Craig Berube team, you're not going to have a one-dimensional offensive player on your fourth line. I don't think.
Then who do you think is going to fill the fourth line?
It would probably be. I think your fourth line left winger would be Dewar. Yeah.
Really?
But again, I'm just doing it based on quality of player, kind of.
Okay. Can you explain that a little bit more? Build that out. Build out your argument.
I mean, I think in terms of the fourth line right now, if there's no more moves, it probably would be Connor Dewar, David Kampf, and Ryan Reeves. They had that line a lot last year. It was pretty effective. Yeah. But Dewar, from a skill set and a capability, he fits kind of what you'd be looking for in a fourth line guy, where you have someone who's more defensively accountable.
Exactly. That's why I can't see Robertson on the fourth line.
Correct.
Anyway,
yeah, and I think Max the same way too. I think if you're bringing Max Pacioretty in camp, I think you're wasting his time and your time if you're not playing him with a John Tavares or a Max Domi at some point to see what he has to offer. So that's why I keep saying ignore the lines, really.
So to paraphrase, you're saying that Pacioretty and Robertson are bringing a similar skill set to the Leafs.
Yeah. And I'd even go so far as to say they both aren't on this team opening night.
What? I disagree with that. I think, well, the good thing is about Pacioretty is that we have the flexibility not even to sign him to a contract.
Right.
He's just coming over on a professional tryout basis. Yeah. So if he's not making the team on opening night, wouldn't you say that we part our ways? We say adieu. We say au revoir to Pacioretty.
Well, yeah. I mean, if Max Pacioretty is competing for that third line left wing spot, I would say he's competing with Nick Robertson, Easton Cowan, probably. And I don't think all three of them make it. I don't even think two, as I said, I don't think both Pacioretty and Robertson make it, which goes back to our earlier conversation where I think there could be a Robertson trade still happening. But to me, I just don't think you have your bottom two left wingers be Max Pacioretty and Nicholas Robertson.
No, I completely agree. But do you think that we'd sign Pacioretty to an AHL contract? Do you think he would agree to that? Or you think it's
an AHL contract?
Yeah.
No.
So he would. What would he do then if he doesn't get a contract with the Leafs after his PTO?
Well, I have a feeling that because there was some talk that there were a couple other teams that Pacioretty was talking to. I heard Detroit being mentioned a lot. The way I see it, he's only signing the PTO right now because the Leafs have probably assured him that he will get a contract in camp, that they just have to sort out their cap situation, aka they have to find a way to trade somebody, Robertson or whoever, Yarncroke, you name it. Yeah. But to me, I think Max Pacioretty is in the opening night lineup. So when I said I don't think both of them will be, I'm really saying Nick Robertson is gone.
Okay, so then Pacioretty stays as our third line left winger, and Dewar goes up to our fourth line left winger.
I think that's more likely.
Robertson's traded. Steve stays in the Marlies. Nylander's in the Marlies.
Yeah, at least to begin the year, if I had to guess. I mean, that's obviously very speculative, of course, but that's kind of what I would expect to happen. Because I just think Max Pacioretty, he didn't have to take the PTO. He definitely had, it seems like he could have got a standard contract. And I think at his age,
I think you're right.
It's either his career-long dream to be a Maple Leaf, so he would have taken anything they offered, or he was truly promised, like, look, it's a PTO today, it's a contract in 2 weeks.
All right, well, to play devil's advocate, we did say the same thing about the Alex Nylander contract. We haven't seen that actualized as a PTO or a Leafs contract yet. But I would think that a guy like Pacioretty wouldn't accept a PTO. Like, he is not just a sort of another name that's available.
Right.
Like, he's Max Pacioretty. He's like a big dude. Like, not actually physically big. He's not that physically big. But
he's a big name guy. He's been a very productive player.
He doesn't want to get cut. I would think his ego is a little bit too big for that. So I can totally see where you're coming from. And that, that point is really well received, is that might be extra fodder, extra fuel to the Nicholas Robertson getting traded. Gossip wagon.
And I mean, obviously, this is what we do on Leafs Unfiltered. We throw out takes and hope that a couple of them actually will stick at the end of the year or whatever. End of training camp we're talking about here. But to me, it just seems like those two guys have a very similar offering or what they can bring to the team. You probably don't need both. Could there be a path for both of them to make it? Sure. I think Robertson being at 875 opens up a lot of options if you do decide to keep him, because he's not obviously a huge burden for your payroll, but it's about being competitive too.
Okay, I will say one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've kind of put Max Pacioretty and Nicholas Robertson as we painted the picture that they're quite similar players. Would you not agree that Robertson has a way higher upside or higher ceiling than Pacioretty?
I mean, being a young player, sure, but are we talking about just for this upcoming year?
No, for the career. For I think when you bring on a player, you want to be longish sighted. Like it's a 1-year contract, sure, but you start a relationship with somebody. You're not dating them for the first week or the first month. Like you're hoping that things can really work out. And
for sure.
I wonder if the same thinking will apply, if we sort of extrapolate that concept. Max Pacioretty is...
I see where you're going. Yep, it's fair.
Is he 36, Max?
35. 35. A young 35. I've actually heard he plays like a 34-year-old.
Well, then, that's way younger than most Leafs. So, but Robertson is young. He's sort of in that age bracket that we're really deficient in. And I think, I can't get his brother out of my head, to be perfectly honest. Like Jason Robertson.
Or you still think he's as good as his brother? That's where
I think he could be. I really think if given, I don't want to say if given the opportunity, he's had the opportunity, but I think that he's got it. He could have it. Okay. We just don't really know. And so,
wait, you said he's got it, then you said he could have it.
No, I didn't say that, but he was old. What did they call him this season? Old scratch and score. Like we'd scratch him for a game and then he'd score the next game.
No, he had a good habit of that for sure. Yeah, and I think we're like just going back to like the question you posed about who has a higher ceiling. Like, I guess because of Pacioretty, maybe at best he's got 2 more years to play. So he's obviously not going to be someone who you project to be contributing even beyond this coming year. But I think this move, when you're comparing Pacioretty and Robertson, who makes the team, if it is between those two guys, as I sort of suggested, it's more about, who helps us win more hockey games in the 2024-25 season.
You're absolutely right. You're right.
I think if you ask Tree Living right now, he would have no problem saying it's Max Pacioretty.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
And also we know Nick Robertson really didn't want to be a Maple Leaf. So the idea of Nick Robertson, right. So the idea of, Nick Robertson has a more promising future in the league is obvious and correct, but Nick Robertson has basically shown he doesn't want it to be here anyways. Now, he might have a change of heart, but for right now, I would assume that the Leaf front office is like, either way, whichever guy is making or getting our third line left wing spot, it's a 1-year kind of trial. Experiment. Yeah.
I like that. And I like your call that Dewar could be our 4th line lock, just because we want our 4th line to be consistent. And like if you have Kampf and you have Reeves,
Well, and they also signed Dewar almost like 1.2 mil. So to me, he's on the team.
Yeah.
Like he makes the team, obviously, just based on how I did the pecking order. I have him behind Robertson. It's more just in terms of quality of the player, but in terms of what they're going to actually choose, I think Dewar is a lock to make the team.
Okay. I think we've baked out our third line. Let's move. Are you ready to move over to center?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
So I'll run it down for the audio audience. We've got Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Max Domi, David Kampf, then Easton Cowan, Steven Lorenzen, Fraser Minton. Just in terms of depth chart, who's competing. Cowan, as Caroline correctly alluded or pointed out, Cowan probably doesn't begin his NHL career at the center position, but I just kind of have him on the 5th line because to me, he's that like bubble forward coming into camp where he easily could push for an opening night spot.
Totally. Totally. Well, this is interesting. Everything beyond the third line is interesting again.
That's where it gets interesting. I agree.
Yeah. Like Austin Matthews, obviously. John Tavares.
He's probably making the team.
I think he'll be there. Yeah, I think he'll probably be there. John Tavares, yes. Domi, yes. So now we have 3 guys. Let's, potentially, if Cowan's, moved over to the flank. Camp, Lorentz, and Minton. I guess important to call out that Minton did get that 9-gamer or the 11-gamer last season with the Leafs.
I think he only made it to 4. I think they gave him 4 and then sent him back down. He was kind of underwhelming.
Sorry about that. So he got 4.
He was 4 or 5, yeah.
In a great world, I guess you gotta hope that we trade out Nick Robertson, maybe. Here I'm contradicting myself from earlier. But
no, hey, that's what it's all about. All we're doing here is workshopping. This is a workshop.
Yeah, no, this is
brainstorming session. Yeah.
I don't really know where Easton Cowan fits though, because as you said, Dewar looks good on the 4th line with the 4th line mates, being Camp and Reeves. We haven't gotten to right wing, but
wait, who's that player you said before Ryan Reeves?
Camp.
Gone. Has to be gone. Or Yardcroak. I you know how I was saying I'm about a 95% Cowan makes the opening night lineup?
Yeah.
I would almost be not at a 95, but I would go 75% David Kampf or Yarncroke traded before opening night.
And then what are we looking for in return for them?
I don't think you get much because of their contract. So Camp is at 2.4, Yarncroke at 2.1. Yeah, that's the expected reaction.
Bad contract. That's a really bad contract.
Very bad. So you're going to have to add something to even move those guys. So maybe you were talking about, could the Robertson be a sweetener for a Mitch Marner trade? Maybe Robertson could be a sweetener for a David Camp trade. And that still might not be enough to move him, but...
And we're going to still probably have to retain some of that salary, right? I can't imagine.
Could be, or we add like a draft pick, which is easy for us because we have none.
Yep. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like I have no idea how Tree Living will do it. And I think it would be very impressive if and when, because I'm saying good chance he does find a way. But I'll be very impressed to see how it gets done. But it will be worth celebrating when one of David Camp or Calle Yarncroke are moved. Because to me, you've now found what this Maple Leaf team, the organization, should have been doing all those years when they had the core. And I think to an extent, Dubas did do it, where you're finding guys to come to your team who, you don't need to overpay them. Because there are going to be those guys like we're seeing with Steven Lorentz and now Max Pacioretty. We even saw Tanev maybe taking less. We saw Max Domi taking a discount.
Definitely
Players will come to Toronto. Not that Toronto's the only place they will come, but Toronto is one of those places that they will come and play for less money to be able to, forget about because they think they can win a cup. That ship has sailed. But
I think we have the luxury of being in the conversation. Not that we're winning a cup. But
as a contender, sure.
We're a playoff team right now.
A contender. And it's a great hockey market. And not that it means something to every hockey player.
Nope.
But there's enough hockey players like a Chris Tanev that probably want to play in a market where hockey means something.
Yeah.
And obviously he's played with Calgary, Vancouver, Dallas. So it's not like for Tanev, Toronto's the first team like that for him. But just in general, I think players enjoy playing in a market like that. And Toronto is one of those top 3, 4, 5 markets where players will go. And to me, that's where Tree Living now coming in. I know he's the one who signed the David Camp contract. So obviously he's got to fix his own error in judgment there. Yeah. But you don't need to pay 3rd, 4th liners 2.1, 2.4 to play mediocre hockey for you when you're Toronto.
No, especially exactly like you said, like when we've been able to pull in a guy like Pacioretty for what you're predicting to be like 1.1.
Yeah.
I would take Pacioretty over David Camp. Sorry.
100%. And they obviously do different things. So if you don't have David Kampf, you got to find a guy who's going to take your defensive zone faceoffs, going to be on your PK unit. So it's not a one-for-one exchange. But yeah, I agree. I think when you look at the value return of David Kampf in 2.4 versus Pacioretty at maybe around the 1.1 mark, to me, I think it's a no-brainer. And you also have 3 years remaining on David Kampf, so you can't keep that. Yeah,
I'm sick. But okay, back to the center conversation. Yeah, I'm gonna put Steven Lorentz as a lock at our fourth line center.
I like that take. I like that. I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think that's, if you're saying that Kampf is gone, that's our obvious slot up. That's
like it might have. I mean, he'll have to perform. I mean, I don't know if it's a 100% kind of lock, but I think it's pretty close to it. As long as he shows up and laces up his skates, I think he's on.
Yeah, and we paid him, right? Like, we didn't pay Pacioretty. We've given Steven Lorentz a contract.
No, he's also PTO.
Oh, so sorry. Yeah. Oh, God.
No, all good. No, because I have him listed at $935, but again, that's just the Puckpedia requirement. They won't let you just add a PTO.
Yeah, you're right. Everybody on this, what we're looking at here, it's a seven line depth chart has a salary attributed to them.
Yeah, you have to make it work here on that.
That was a PTO as well.
Yeah. So he's not guaranteed anything by any stretch, but to me, that would be the obvious. We bring him in and we find a way to get rid of Kampf.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Easier said than done, though.
It is easier said than done. You're not leaving a lot of room for Easton Cowan.
No, we're not. We're not. And that's why this is like fun to kind of like talk through, because it's like, I'd love to just be a fly on the wall when Brad Treliving and the front office was saying, okay, so we've got Max Pacioretty, good. Okay, we got Steven Lorentz, okay, Nick Robertson, perfect.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, hold on a second here. We want Cowan in the lineup. How do we do it?
Can you play right wing, Easton? Just kidding.
I believe he has. I think he's kind of shifted all around. I think he may have played more right wing than left wing. I can't recall now, but he does shoot left. But yeah, kind of irrelevant for now. But I think
showed on that. Yeah. Okay. Before I have a hot take to bring in, let's run through the right wing
side
chart that you have here.
So we go top to bottom: Mitch Marner, William Nylander, Kalle Järnkrok, Ryan Reeves, Pontus Holmberg, Nikita Grabyankin, and Jacob Quillen. Holmberg also not really a right winger, more a center or left winger, but again, it's just to kind of have it by priority sort of pecking order.
Nothing's locked here. This is more of we're fluidly looking at all these columns anyway.
Yeah. All we're doing is throwing names on the whiteboard here, pretty much.
Okay, just like my first take after you read that, we've now introduced every player on this 3x7 depth chart. Holy moly, our center looks good.
You like it, eh?
Yeah, we've really dialed our center chart.
Well, and this also presumes that Max Domi would play center and not ride shotgun with Austin Matthews again, which is what I would like to see. I'd like to see Domi back with Austin Matthews. Yeah.
I mean, they were really firing in the playoffs, but I think that you're right. Like he probably would love to be in the top 6. Good face-off guy, trustworthy dude. When our bottom 6 is as sparse as it is, I like his name down there.
Yeah, totally fair. I think if you've added a winger like Pacioretty, you can probably build a case more that that third line can actually be decent offensively. So I could see that happening too, for sure.
Okay, so let's go back to our right wingers. Mitch Marner. So Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews reuniting. Not that they've been separated, but they were.
Well, yeah, and I think they're both. I think Marner and Domi will both get a look. Whatever, one preseason game, Marner will play with him. The next, maybe Domi. So I think they're try both scenarios out.
Yeah. Willie Nylander, right wing looks pretty good so far.
Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
Kelly Yarncrook, you think he might be trade bait?
Yeah, like I don't know how they could if Tree Living moves both Yarncroke and David Kampf without giving up Easton Cowan.
What do you have against the Swedes?
No, it's only Yarncroke. You're talking about
Yarncroke Swedish?
Yeah, Yarncroke is, but I thought you meant Kampf as well. He's Czech.
Oh, he's Czech. I always get that wrong.
Czech, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we do have a lot of Swedes. Nylander, Yarncroke, Holmberg, now Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Timothy Liljegren. There is definitely a lot of Swedes.
Wow.
Kampf is not one of them.
We have no Finns, though, I remember.
Yanni Hakanpää.
Oh, my God. Yanni Hakanpää.
Yeah. How can you forget?
Yes.
I mean, he signed 4 hours ago. You already forgot about him.
I already forgot.
Well, actually, he apparently signed 3 months ago, but officially, yeah. Or 2 months
I didn't see it on social. It never happened. Just
True.
kidding.
True.
But that was so funny that back in the day, back in July, Josh and I were talking about how the social team had been so quick to post all the Leafs signings. And there was no Hakanpää, but like Hakanpää had been announced everywhere. And we're like, did that social person just forget? Like, did they leave it in their drafts?
Totally.
That's what I do for a living is I do social for a brand. And it would be like my worst nightmare to be called out for not posting something in a timely
Yeah. Can you imagine if that Toronto Maple Leaf sightingman gets the call from Brad Tree Living? Did that go out yet? Did Hakanpää signing go out yet? I did it a long time ago, and your boss should have told you to send it out. Oh, Brad, shoot, it was in my drafts. I'm sorry. I assumed that it's sent, but I must have logged out of my email too early or whatever.
I got banned. Just kidding. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, we want to still look at the D, but any final thoughts on the forwards? Like, it's obviously, I mean, we're not going to solve anything here, but there's a lot to get figured out yet.
Absolutely. And yeah, I guess right wing is a little harder to nail down because, well, they're all hard to nail down because there's some serious trade bait in there, Yarncrook. But what do you see the fourth line? If you had to call it right now, you can even use player X on fourth line if you think that somebody's going to be traded. Who do you think is on our Leafs fourth line and third line? That's my question for you right now.
Yeah, so I think fourth, because I'm still holding out hope for Kampf being traded. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be too hard to make that transaction happen. So I'll go Dewar.
You said 95% he was going to be traded like 10 minutes ago.
I think I said Kampf or Yarncroke. No? Or did I say Kampf?
Maybe. I thought and. I heard an and.
We'll have to roll the tape back. I think it was like or, but you might be right.
Maybe you slurred your words. Maybe
perhaps. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And perhaps maybe I was just kind of drinking the Kool-Aid and maybe just having this fantasy of Kampf actually being able to get moved. But now reality has kind of kicked in as we advance in the show, maybe. But yeah, so even if I did say that, I will kind of rephrase. I think it's Kampf or Yarncroke get moved. So I think Kampf probably more likely hangs around because of that 3 years at 2.4. So I'll go fourth line, Dewar, Kampf, and Ryan Reeves.
Okay.
And then I will go, because he can't play center, it's very tough to envision Cowan as a third line center, but I would think it could be something like a Domi, Cowan, Pacioretty.
So, sorry,
Domi. But then I don't have Steven Lorentz on the team. I don't think I can be. So I don't think I can be GM. I can't be GM. I thought I could when I did this. I can't.
No, there's so many different variables right now. Like you would think
I don't know how you figure this out.
11 sleeps until preseason that we could have something, a picture that's a little bit more painted. But right now,
I don't know how Tree Living can do it.
I don't either. I don't know. He's like a mad, evil genius, maybe.
If he can pull it off. Because, like if I'm saying Kampf isn't getting moved, like Steven Lorentz probably doesn't make the team. Or if, like, if Yarncroke is still here, does that mean Max Pacioretty or Cowan? One of those guys probably doesn't make it. So to me, I think, yeah.
I used to think being a GM was so easy. Like, just like buy the best guys. Come on. I mean, it's not easy, but like you have all 12 months to put together a team. It's like,
yeah, I know. Like, seriously.
There's only so many available people. There's only so much available money. Just do it, right? Like,
yeah. And just do it better than the other 31 teams. I don't get why it's so problematic for some of these
me
GMs.
Neither, really. Yeah. Like, but I guess here we are, living the GM nightmare or living the GM reality.
Yeah, and I mean, some of it is self-imposed, right? Like, I mean, he signed David Camp. Like, I thought that was a ridiculous decision.
Back when it happened, you thought that was a ridiculous decision?
Yeah. Yeah, I liked Camp the first year when he was brought over from Chicago, I believe. But after that, I was like, yeah, if you told me he was only making 1.2 or whatever, sure, you could extract some decent value there. But to have thought he had done enough to get a 4-year 2.4, I don't get it.
Even 1.2, I'd be like, meh, I don't know.
You could probably still do better. I agree. Okay, so then we'll quickly run down to D. It's obviously not as many players to talk about here, but this is kind of, I would say, what we got here, the top 11 coming into camp, and then the goaltending as well. So I'll run down it quickly. You got, I'll do it by pairings, Riley Tanev, Benoit McCabe, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and Timothy Liljegren. Marshall Rafai and Connor Timmins, Dakota Mermis and Yanni Hakanpää, and then Philip Myers. So I've got Hakanpää probably further down than he should be, only because I still don't know what his status is. Like, I get it. He signed a contract, but is he just going on LTIR to begin the year? I don't know.
Yeah. I kind of suspect not. Like, I
hope not.
Yeah, I hope not too, but just the way that they announced the contract right before training camp, it's almost like they got some information that, like, okay, green light.
Good to go. Maybe. Yeah.
You know, like, you're not getting a green light that's like such an advanced green. Like,
yeah.
Unless they announced a surgery or they announced some injury.
No, you know what? I totally agree with that, because I think I don't think it would have come out from the team, but you would think one of the insiders may have kind of reported that when he got signed. Like, but the Leafs don't expect him to be in training camp. Expectation is he goes right to LTIR. So until we hear that, I would say you're probably spot on.
He should have been in surgery, and we would have heard that. But we saw him playing on the ice in that Finnish charity tournament or whatever. Like, if you weren't going to be eligible for this season, he's not old enough that he's going to go into, like, bye-bye land. He'd be in surgery. And so I would have expected we'd hear that he's in surgery. The Leafs are not signing him. Or the Leafs are signing him, but he will not be available until, midway through the season. So, I think he'll be on the ice, which is good. Like, we had more dark thoughts about Hakanpää for sure, like just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. It was too easy to not have those, right? I mean, everything where we were headed with Hakanpää was like, there's no way this guy's going to be a Leaf or even play in the NHL again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if that is, because we are kind of aligned there, I agree that he probably is now expected to be in the lineup going on the momentum that we had with the forwards in terms of, who's getting moved off. I will be looking directly at the Timothy Liljegren name right now.
Liljegren, not Timmins.
I think he could get moved too, but I think that if they think Hakanpää is ready to go, I don't think you are signing him to a $1.47 deal to be your seventh defenseman.
No, me neither.
So I think he bumps out Lily.
Also, holy moly, Liljegren's $3 million.
That's exactly why. Yeah, that's too much for a guy who might be competing with Hakanpää and probably losing if Hakanpää is healthy.
Absolutely. Who signed Liljegren, and what's his contract like?
That was Brad Tree Living. They did that
1 year
just before 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
2 years at $3 million. So I think
remember.
Timothy Liljegren and Nick Robertson both feel like sign and trades. I know Timothy Liljegren, he signed a long time ago. So maybe it wasn't meant to be a sign and trade, but now that Hakanpää could be available, it feels like I don't think they're going in with those 7D, given they're 1 million over the cap right now with the Hakanpää signing.
Yeah, so somebody needs to go.
Yeah, at least one. Because you might need to sign Max Pacioretty or Steven Lorentz.
Good point.
If you want to give them a contract. So at least one, probably 2 or even 3 guys have to move to make the room.
Yeah. Well, I would sure hope that we can package out Liljegren, because with Hakanpää, I don't really see a need for him. Unless we swap Hakanpää for Timmins, which is really what the social chatter has been saying.
Yeah, I think a lot, and I think it's fair to suggest that Timmins is, clearly he would be the odd man out for sure, first and foremost, over Liljegren, over Hakanpää. But, can you move him, or you just have to eat that salary and use him as your 7th? I don't know. But, yeah, it's, I don't know if you could add multiple guys like we're talking about, like the Camp, the Robertson, the Lilly, the Yarncroke, is adding all those guys in a trade proposal to a team any more enticing? We can give you. I
don't think so. I think you're
probably less.
You're literally giving them our compost.
Garbage? Pretty much.
No, compost. Let's euphemize
compost.
Garbage.
Fair.
We're upcycling them. But but I still think these are guys that don't fit on our roster because we've replaced them with better guys. Teams know that.
I don't think Yarncroke has any value, but if you were saying, well, we'll give you Robertson or Timothy Liljegren if you take Yarncroke, then it maybe looks a little bit better.
Okay.
Probably not much, but a little bit.
Okay, so now that we've run through this for audio listeners, please name me our defensive pairings left and right as you see it, as you imagine it.
My opening night prediction?
And you can use player X if you need to.
No, that's not fair. No, I appreciate you allowing me to do that, but that's not what we do in Leafs Unfiltered.
So you're assuming that these are our defensemen. I was just saying, if you think that Liljegren's going to be traded, somebody else is going to go in there. You can use player X.
Okay.
And this is, this is obviously for money, Josh. If you get them
absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure. No, for me, I think that's the obvious move. If Hakanpää is healthy, it's Timothy Liljegren out, Hakanpää in.
Okay, start from the top.
Okay. So I would have, as it is, Riley Tanev, Simone Benoit, and Jake McCabe, then Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Hakanpää.
Nice. Okay.
In an ideal world, you've got healthy and the ability to trade Timothy Liljegren. That is my opening night blue line.
And what if we cannot trade Liljegren? What happens then?
Well, then you've got probably more money tied up in your D than you're prepared to have. If you have to keep, Hakanpää is obviously signed to a deal. The only way I could see them not moving Timothy Liljegren is, as we were talking about earlier, if Hakanpää opens up on LTIR, which we sort of said is probably not what's happening. But if he's going to be on the active roster come opening night, I find it hard to believe that both him and Timothy Liljegren are on this opening night team. I guess I could see it, but then you're for sure moving a Yarncroke or a Camp, because right now you can't fit it in.
So, do you think a guy like Timothy Liljegren would sort of pack his bags for Robidas Island if he needed to?
No, I don't think you'd have to Robidas him. I think there's enough. I think there would be interest. Probably not every team knocking on Tree Living's door, but he's a young defenseman. You've got enough teams that won't, fret about absorbing the salary and maybe thinking that it's a little bit much for what the player provides. But, there are teams, whether it's your Anaheims, your Columbus, San Jose, that, they need to fill some roster spots. They need to get over the cap floor. So I can see, as long as the Maple Leafs are giving them an incentive. But yeah, I don't even think with Timothy Liljegren you need that much incentive. I think he has some value.
Sorry. So if we were trading Timothy Liljegren, in return, you expect like draft picks, right? You're not
something decent, a prospect, a draft pick. I mean, I wouldn't. But
you're not looking
much.
for a roster. You're not looking for a roster player, right? Like clearly, we don't have spots.
Exactly. Yeah, probably not at this point. I think whether you're moving Yarncroke, Liljegren, Robertson, Camp, you're just hoping to get cap space back, and maybe you don't need to get anything else other than that back. But sure, a draft pick would be always desired.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I like those lines as you've drawn them up. I think that's what I would think too. I feel like we have too many names right now. We have too many names. Too many names and
too many lower quality names. Right?
Like, look at you being a Gen Z mid.
I know, right? As the kids say, Caroline, he's so mid.
I know. So funny.
So, I mean, I think that's where Tree Living is adding these guys that he thinks might be a little bit more than mid. The Max Pacioretty, the Steven Lorentz, obviously Hawk and Paw, because he probably feels like there's some lesser players, holdover players that he hopes to move.
Okay, so
we shall see.
We shall see, and I think we can. I was like, wow, what just happened?
Oh, sorry. Were you gonna just as I removed that? Were you gonna reference something?
No, not at all. I was going to say something that's not on topic at this moment, but I wanted to bring it up. It's a point that I've personally held. I hear a lot on podcasts in the media about just give that player a shot. Like bring Easton Cowan up, bring Fraser Minton up, give him NHL experience. I just don't think that's the right attitude. I think that these guys can get equally good experience in a league that's higher level than the league they've been playing in. Call it the AHL, call it the OHL. In Europe. Like, don't sacrifice a roster spot to give a guy experience in the NHL. I don't think that's necessary. Like, I think these guys can develop if that's what they need to do elsewhere. I think it's a combination of playing, training, and, mental maturity. And I don't love this whole, like, let's sacrifice a guy like Pacioretty, who might be more of an immediate performer, to put Easton Cowan in that left wing position because he needs to develop, and we should develop him. Like,
very fair.
I don't know. Like, there could be a lot of case studies I could look at in NHL.
Yeah, like you're basically saying you don't want to see a guy rushed, right?
I just don't think a team needs to do it for the sake of a player's. Well, I mean, yes, the player needs to develop, but I think there are other ways to develop a player. Let's look at Austin Matthews. Austin Matthews went to Switzerland.
He did.
And I just don't love that argument. We're like, oh, we're sacrificing all these players' development by bringing in chips like Lorentz or like Pacioretty. Those guys can develop on their own terms. They don't need to be up with the best guys in the world. They're not performing up to the best guys in the world level anyway. Put them in the KHL. Put them in the Swedish Elite League where they're already going to be up against some really good players. But what do you think about that? Like, do you want?
Well, I mean, like if your point is more like with Easton Cowan that you want to obviously do what's best.
It's not mutually exclusive to Easton Cowan.
No.
It's more any player.
General.
They're like, bring them up. Like, just bring them up. They need the NHL experience. Like, I think they can get that experience elsewhere and not sacrifice potentially a win. Not a win, but a team's.
No, and I think in terms of a general, argument, I think that's fair. I mean, I think there's obviously a lot of teams who maybe try to rush young players because they feel they're ready and they probably aren't doing right by the player. But, when you talk about certain players, especially ones that don't have the opportunity to bridge the gap between their current league, whether that's a junior league like the OHL, WHL, the Quebec Hockey League, and the NHL, I think that's where it becomes a more difficult argument and maybe a little bit less black and white, right? Where it's like, we do want to do what's best for this guy.
NHL. If Easton's either going back to the Knights or playing for the Leafs,
right?
Hugely different.
Like I think if you had that, like with a guy like a Fraser Minton, I think it's going to be a much easier conversation for the Maple Leaf brass to say, okay, where is Fraser Minton right now after training camp? He played in all our preseason games. He did whatever. He looked overwhelmed. He underwhelmed, however you want to describe his performance. And then you can say, okay, there's an option for him to go back to his junior team in the WHL.
Yeah.
Probably show it on camera. Or he could go to the AHL and kind of maybe get some experience there and maybe not in as high profile a situation as he would at the Maple Leafs. Yeah. Or he could play with obviously the big club, the Maple Leafs. So a little bit more options. I think easier to say, well, what bucket does Minton fit in terms of his current progress, his development? Whereas Cowan, I mean, I know we weren't going to do specifics, but I think with Cowan, it is kind of where it goes against the argument of, well, just let the kid figure it out, send him back to junior. With Cowan, it's kind of like, if he makes your team better and you're in a win now window, unless you think he's totally not ready, but obviously that's going to get hashed out and figured out through training camp and preseason. Yeah. And if Easton Cowan shows forget about one of your top 12 forwards. I think if he shows you that he's one of your top 9, then you don't just say, well, sure, he's better than half the guys that we might actually be playing on our opening night lineup, but let's send him back down anyways, because that's what we're told to do to help the guy's development. He might develop better playing against men in the NHL.
Could he not go to a European league?
I mean, I suppose he could. I don't think he'd have an appetite to do that. I mean, if the guy's dream is to play in the NHL, it would be for a year, NHL or OHL.
But just for a year, if it were better for his development than the OHL. He just light up the NHL, the OHL. He's already the MVP.
He already did.
Of the playoffs, I think.
Yeah.
So I would say,
like, you just don't see it very often. Like, especially with top prospects, you don't see them take that path. Like, if their team says,
but maybe that's because they're like kind of, little younger boys that aren't being like, but Austin did it.
Yeah. Well, Austin Matthews, he did it before his draft year. So that would be the difference. Like, as soon as he got drafted,
we can't
it was right to the NHL. Yeah, like I think after you're drafted, expectation for, especially if you're a high draft pick like Cowan was, expectation is I'm going to the NHL as soon as I can, as soon as I can get on my junior team. Yeah.
But it's almost like a throwaway year for him if he's going back to the OHL. Not a throwaway year, but
I think that's how he'd probably be looking at it now. I agree.
Yeah. And I mean, he's already a peak performer.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I'm digressing far. I just wanted to bring that in. That like a lot of things that a lot of people have been saying, like, come on, give the guy a chance. Like, let's bring him up. We don't have a big pipeline of prospects. Give him some NHL time. And I'm like, no, like, I want to field the best team we can. I don't want to worry. Like you said, this is our window.
Yeah. Well, I don't think, like, he's not going to make the team if he's terrible in training camp. Like I don't think it's a situation where they've already decided he's making the team. I think, and as we saw with like the depth chart, like he's got to prove, or he's got to like tell Berube, he's got to tell Tree Living that you need to find a way to get Yarncroke off the team, because I've just dominated him on every shift in training camp, and I can help your team win more games than he can, and he makes double the amount that I do.
How can we watch training camp? Can we? Do we have to go to the Coca-Cola Coliseum? Is that where they play? I think it's now Ford Performance Center. They've renamed, Ford Performance Center in Etobicoke or wherever it is. But I don't think I don't think those practices are open to the public. Okay.
Yeah. Like I think in the not old days, but when they had Leafs TV, Leafs TV would sometimes show like the training camp. Now, I don't think you can watch any of it unless you're actually there somehow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we need to close it up here. I've been too chatty.
No, it's good. It's obviously a good conversation, and it's obviously a hot topic. Like, what do you do with Cowan? So we're obviously have a lot more to talk about as we get closer to training camp. And then, we won't talk too much about this. It's just the what to look for. Obviously, prospect showdown. These are the players, Cowan included, that will be going to Montreal this weekend to play.
You're going? Oh no.
No, I'm saying these guys are going. I'd love to go, but I will not be going. No.
Apparently it's at the Bell Center, but not clear if anyone from the Leafs is going to be there covering. So we might be sort of stuck with the Montreal broadcast, which I don't even know if we'll get on any time on Sports.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't heard that yet.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But anyway, it's probably on like Leafs YouTube channel at the very least.
Could be. We'll have to look into that. Yeah, because there will be obviously fun hockey, and I think if you're a Montreal Canadian fan, these games Saturday and Sunday are probably the most meaningful games
They're going to crush us. Year. They're going to crush us.
Well, they should. They should, because if you ask them, they have the best prospect pool in the NHL.
Oh, you mean they'll just tell you? You don't even ask. You don't need to ask them.
Yeah. They're very polite. They volunteer that information.
That's correct. Oui.
Yeah. Oui.
Okay.
All right. Well, this was awesome. It was fun. Obviously, a lot of interesting conversations. Obviously, we didn't solve anything tonight, but Caroline, I don't think that was the objective.
Absolutely nothing. We created more questions than we answered.
Yeah, we probably confused people more than we helped them in terms of the audience.
Especially our audio listeners, yes.
And that's what we do every week on Leafs Unfiltered. Chalk up a dub. Yeah. But this was awesome for the audience. Thank you for tuning in and viewing. Obviously, as always, drop us a comment if you have any feedback for us, anything you'd like to see going forward. But we will be back next week to break down some more topics for you.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Have a good one.